Hey Sheriff, thinking of hitting up Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi area and would love to get your advice. Hey Stephen, hope things are going well. A trip to the southern US states for blackjack will I'm sure be exciting and probably different from the casino atmosphere you've seen in the past. Be aware and ready for quite a different type of crowd than you'll typically see in Vegas or in Washington. You may receive some extremely awkward or intense backoffs once they realise you're there to make money for reals. My two backroom attempt stories both came from Mississippi casinos. Be careful.
The next episode of Beat the Odds is already up on Nebula. More info at the end of the video. Welcome to this 6-part video series of my trip to the southern states of America that happened in May 2022. My trip to Washington State was card counting on easy mode. This trip was a whole different ball game. Well, a different card game. Well, the same card game, it was just that there was different. There'll be a new video every Wednesday until the trip is over. Let's start with day 1 of the trip.
I've just done the biggest screw up. So I'm at the airport, I check in my bag, and then I put my passport back in my pocket, and I realise my pocket feels a bit off. It's because there isn't a wallet in there, and that I've actually lost my wallet. And my wallet, credit cards, debit cards, okay, I could get by without that, but it has my driver's license in it. If I get to New Orleans airport and get my hire car and I don't have a driver's license, I am totally screwed. So I'm in a panic thinking, have I dropped it somewhere? Have I left it on the train? I call my girlfriend praying that I left it at the house. And I did. So now she's zipped on a train to come here and give it to me. It means that I'm going to be really pushing it a bit tight for my flight. Man, that's the stupidest thing I've done in ages.
So my girlfriend came to the rescue and I did manage to catch my flight, but I absolutely sprint through that airport to catch the flight. I was so incredibly out of breath when I got on the plane. Last person on the plane, just made it. But we're here now, everything's fine. We've raised $170,000 for this trip bankroll, and of that money I've put in $20,000 myself, and it feels really weird to be saying that because before starting this whole blackjack journey, I didn't have any dollars, and now I have $20,000 to put into this trip. I feel very grateful that I have the opportunity to now invest, and I also feel like it's right for me to be investing myself. If I can afford to, I should have a stake in the results. If I lose money, I've lost some of my own money, not just other people's money. I currently have with me $25,000 in cash, and the reason I don't have loads more cash than that is because we actually have 2 other players that are also playing on this trip. Those 2 players are actually in different states to me, but we're all playing on the same bankroll, and we're all playing at the same time, which is handy because if anything goes wrong, like if I lose all my money, I can fly and meet them and maybe get some more cash from them. It just makes the whole logistical part of this a little bit easier. Here's what I'm worried about. I haven't actually played blackjack in a casino since I started uploading these videos, and I always knew that putting these videos out there wasn't going to exactly help my blackjack career. I knew that going into this. But what I didn't know, and what I don't know, is how much of an impact they'll have. I think a lot of people tend to think, oh, your face is on the internet as a card counter. You'll never get any time in a casino anywhere. However, I know some very notable card counters, like Colin Jones, for example, who can still play on the Las Vegas Strip. So it's not quite that simple. Saying that, anything could happen. It could be possible that most casinos have at least one member of staff that are aware of me, and in which case, I'm in a really tricky spot. It could also be possible that the world is really big and I'm really small, and that my videos haven't made a huge impact. I will say that my confidence for that option is not super strong, considering I've had a couple of situations in London where casino staff have come up to me and told me that they like my videos, which means my videos are very much in those circles. Yeah, but there's only one way to find out. I started off in Louisiana, where I was staying at my friend Cliff's guest house. Thanks, Cliff. There were a couple of casinos less than an hour's drive, so it made sense to start with those. On my first trip, I'd adopted a very aggressive betting strategy, betting as low as $5 on a hand and as high as 2 hands of $400 each. This bet spread generates a tasty hourly rate, but stands out as very card countery. Most people are more consistent with their betting amounts. Going from $5 to $500 is a red flag to surveillance. I was keen for us to try a subtler approach. Changing our bet sizes less dramatically could potentially allow us more time in a casino before a back off. But it's a tricky balancing act. A tighter bet spread may gain us more time, but our expected value, how much we'd win on average per hour, would be lower. There's simply no way of knowing the perfect bet spread to balance time and EV. You certainly don't want to only buy a little bit more time when you've sacrificed a lot of EV. So as a compromise, our team manager Ultimate generated a couple different bet spreads, the Priest spread and Boxer spread. I have no idea why those names were chosen, Those were the names that he chose. On the pre-spread, we'd bet as low as 2 hands of around $50 each, up to 2 hands of around $400. This was our tighter spread and would hopefully stand out less to surveillance. Whereas on the boxer spread, for a comparable game, we'd bet up to 2 hands of around $800. This is much more aggressive, looks way more card countery, but would generate us almost twice the EV as the pre-spread. We had some discretion when it came to the exact betting amount. Some games we could bet as high as around the $1,000 mark, depending on the game conditions. We also didn't want teammates betting the exact same amounts as each other, so everyone's spread was a little different. But the basic idea was to use good judgment over which spread to use depending on the casino. I drove over to La Berge Casino in Baton Rouge and started playing. I started off with the 6 deck on the pre-spread before moving over to the double deck and switching over to boxer. Double deck is usually better than 6 deck, but because of that, it's much more closely watched and you can get less time on a double deck game on average. So I was pretty nervous sitting down there. The count rose and I was betting up to 2 hands of $800. After just over an hour of play, I felt like the casino was onto me, so I decided to go to the next casino.
Not a great start. First casino, down $8,300. I was feeling pretty nervous, but those nerves subsided when I was playing. At least I feel back at the tables. Feels good to be back. So I think I'm going to go try another casino before calling it a day. Feeling a bit bleh, but fine. Fine.
Hollywood Casino Baton Rouge was smaller than La Berge, and smaller casinos often aren't as used to people betting big. I sat down and started playing the 6 deck. As the count went up, I bet 2 hands of $400. Even at that level, I felt like it was too much. In that moment, it felt like it was less about the spread, how many times bigger the top bet was than the smallest, and more about the fact $400 just felt like too much action for this casino. But what else could I do? I couldn't afford to bet anything less than that. Flying in from the UK and other countries already put our team expenses up quite a bit. We needed high EV games for us to stand a chance at a decent profit. Another table opened up, so I took the opportunity to play there. It was quieter. Here's a particularly fun hand from that moment. I wish the count were higher. I got dealt an 11 and a 6. The dealer's up card is a 5. That's a bad card for the dealer. They have a 42% chance of busting. I double my 11 and get a 7. As I have 2 3s, the correct play is to split, adding another $50 to turn that one hand into 2. And another 3, a split again. Another 3. I'll keep splitting while they keep letting me. A 7 on that hand gives me a 10, which against a 5 is a double. A 12, and an 18. The dealer has 10, but luckily that cheeky 3 saves me, and the dealer draws a 10 and busts out. We won 7 bets there. How I wish it were $800 a bet. Still, a fun hand. After around an hour, I felt the heat. Heat is the card counter term for suspicion. When you think the casino is onto you, that's heat. In my case, it took the form of an obvious shift in friendliness from the casino staff. No one was being rude to me, but the sudden lack of warmth was noticeable. In my experience, no matter how hard casino staff may try and hide it, if they think that you're card counting, it's almost impossible for them to act normal. And to be fair, they really have no need to. Whether you think that they think that you're card counting doesn't really make a difference to them. I thought to myself, do I keep playing or leave? Maybe if I leave, I can dodge it back off, be forgotten, and then maybe come back another day. I realised I'd only played for a couple of hours the whole day, so I pushed on. But sure enough, after around 30 minutes, I was approached.
I'm good. Color up in the forest tonight, okay?
Okay,
We're
sure.
not going to let you get any more blackjack action, so you should go ahead and cash in your chips for us.
Okay, sure.
Well, at least it was a chill back off. I then went to the cash desk and proceeded to do what I have now come to refer to as the ID dance.
Let me see your ID.
I don't have it on me.
Application in.
Pardon?
Application in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a player store or ID.
I don't have one.
They didn't love my lack of ID, but cashed me out without too much pushback. Annoyingly, this session was another loser, making my total loss for the day $9,025. Ugh. Perhaps it was because it was the start of the trip, or perhaps it's because I'm in a better personal financial situation than I was in before on the previous trips, but I was still feeling alright. A 9k loss is usually pretty painful, but I wasn't really feeling more than mild disappointment at this stage. Checking in with the other Project Lewis teammate, Lewis as in Louisiana, despite me being the only one in Louisiana. Yeah, I wish I'd picked a cooler name. One teammate hadn't managed to hit the tables yet as he'd had to go meet another counter to grab some cash, but the other teammate had secured a win of $2,562.50. Thanks, dude. I started the next day late. I wanted to play the Friday night sessions. They'd be busier, so the game would be slower, but it's likely I'd blend in more, and I was hoping the high limit rooms would have some other players. One 3.5 hour drive and a bite to eat later, I was ready to play at the Golden Nugget and La Berge Lake Charles, the sister casino to the La Berge I played at the day before. I was pretty hyped as as both of these casinos would have high limit rooms that would be open and bustling. High limit rooms would be used to the bet sizes I was planning on doing, which mean I wouldn't stand out. I sat down in the high limit room and something happened that at first I thought was pretty normal, but only later realised was incredibly strange. Within the first couple of hands, one of the players at the table gave a $1,000 chip to each of his friends that were losing. Nothing too strange, right? One friend giving his other friends some money, even if it is quite high amounts. But it was only later in the session that I realised that guy didn't actually know the other players at the table, he was just giving out $1,000 chips to be nice. Wild. I played for just over 2 hours, betting my 2 hands of $800 when the count was high enough to justify it. Players left every now and again until it was just me at the table. That's when I felt some heat, so I decided to leave and try the casino next door. Given that I was planning on coming back another day, I took the several $1,000s in chips with me. Speaking of several $1,000s in chips, I'd had a lovely win of $4,100, much better than yesterday. After a short break, I ended up in the LaBerge Lake Charles high limit room, which I absolutely loved. Here's a few hands from that session when the count was high. In this case, I'm betting 2 spots of $600. The dealer's got a 3 as their up card, which means they've got around a 38% chance of busting their hand. And I'm struggling to pick up my first hand, which just shows how much of a professional blackjack player I am, eh? But I've got blackjack, which means that $600 bet pays $900. Nice. My other hand is an 8, and as you can see, I'm hesitating here. I'm mentally double checking whether there's a deviation I need to do. I remember that I'd only double this hand at a very high true count, something like a 9, although to be honest, it's not a deviation I'm very confident with, but we're only at a true 4 anyway, so I take a card. 5 gives me a 13, so I stand. And the dealer gets a 10, and another 10, busting out the hand, meaning I win $600 on that hand, a total of $1,500 up in that one round. You can see how quick the game can go, and how much money you can win and lose in any given second, given how high the stakes are. The count went up and down in that round, but ultimately ended where it started, which meant another 2 bets of $600. You can't quite see my cards, but I had a hard 14 in the first hand. Against the dealer 7, I take a card, but bust. Soft 16 versus a 7 is a hit. That soft 16 becomes a hard 16, so I take another card. A 2, not bad, that's 18. But the dealer draws a 2 and then a 10, beating that hand. When I'm looking at the tray, I'm thinking, how many decks of cards are there? And I usually try and estimate this to the nearest half deck, but with a double deck, it's a little bit easier to judge, so I'm estimating to quarter decks. Here I think it's nearly, but not quite a whole deck in the tray, so I can round that to 0.75 decks of cards in the tray, which means there's 1.25 decks remaining. I then divide 5 by 1.25, which gives us a 4. On boxer spread at a true 4, I bet 2 times $800, so that's what I do. A 5 as the dealer's up card is just what we want to see. Another 14, so I stand. Like an absolute fool, I knock over my chips. It's a 10, so a nice double. The dealer's whole card is a 5, which is not at all what I wanted to see. Their odds of busting on this count are pretty low, but luckily for me, they draw another 5 and then a 9, busting the hand. Last hand of the shoe, and we're still on max bets. I get an 11 against the dealer 3, so I double the hand. My other hand is a 20. Against a 3, you'd split this hand at a true 8. But splitting 10s is the most card countery move you can do, so I've decided against 10 splits on this trip. Not splitting 10s sacrifices a small amount of EV. The dealer's measly 17 is no match for my 21 and 20, another $2,400. In a matter of 3 minutes, I'd won $5,100. I do need to point out though, I have shown you the fun hands. Nearly just as often you have hands with those big bets and you lose so many of them. But this is a particularly nice moment, so I thought I'd showcase it. After a couple more hours, I'd lost a bit, but was still up $3,125. I hadn't really felt any heat, but it was somehow 4:44 in the morning, so I decided to leave and find a hotel for the night. But that didn't work out so well.
Day 2 of the trip went much better than day 1, mainly because I actually won money instead of losing money. I did plan my day awfully though, because I ended up finishing my session around 5 AM, and I thought I'll just stay in one of the many hotels that are around here. However, all the ones I tried wouldn't let me check in, because it's like the beginning of a new day and it was too early to check in. There was one that would let me book a room, but then checkout would be at 11, so it ended up being, oh yeah, you can stay here, but only for 5 hours, and it was for something like $250, which felt like such a waste of money, which I know sounds funny given how much we're playing with, but I didn't want to spend that. So I decided to drive back to the casino car park and attempt to sleep here like this. And it was a resounding failure. I did not get much sleep. That's my little update. Now I think I'm gonna get some food, I think.
After a quick bite to eat, I felt surprisingly refreshed and was ready to hit the same 2 casinos again. But it seemed like the high limit room wasn't feeling so chill today, and I felt heat very early on in my session. And in that time, I'd lost $4,120, wiping out all the profits from that casino yesterday. But there was still the casino next door, where I played for 3 more hours before one of my trip fears was realised. I was up $6,725.50, which I normally would have been able to cash out without showing ID, but annoyingly I actually had a total of $15,000 worth of chips to cash. This put me in a predicament. Cashing out that much in chips would legally require me to hand over ID so the casino could fill out a currency transaction report. And if the casino was about to back me off, then giving over my name wasn't ideal. I called up Ultimate, the team manager, and asked him what to do. I paused from our call to do some frantic Googling to double check whether it would be illegal for me to cash out less than $10,000 to avoid handing over ID. Yup, pretty clear it would be structuring. No practical way around it, the casino were getting my name. I just had to hope that because I'd left before the back off, the cashier's desk wouldn't have been informed I was counting. I didn't see it coming, but just as I was cashing out, as the manager came over to verify the cash out, this happened.
Do you know what casino? Sorry? Oh yeah? From what?
A casino staff member had recognised me. I'd say there's around a 50-50 chance as to whether or not he would tell someone, and given that that was the case, I decided I should give it some time before coming back to this casino.
I like your video. Thanks.
What's the question?
Whether he reported seeing me or not, it did make something very real. That I was no longer unidentified male 1183 anymore, and I was Stephen Bridges from YouTube. I was hoping that this would just be a one-off, but the trip was about to take a harsh turn where the reality of my YouTube channel would catch up to me. It's time for the team graph. I had a rough start, losing over 8K in the first session, but that wasn't going to stop me, because by now I'd had an incredible recovery, with my winnings sitting at a staggering $843. Alright, a little bit lackluster. But the other teammates had been doing well, and our overall winnings for the first 3 days were $22,255.
I think it's illegal for you to not cash out the chips. So, if it's a policy you guys have, it's a policy, it's not a law. So are you refusing to cash out the chips?
The next episode of Beat the Odds is available to watch right now on Nebula, the Streamy award-nominated video platform with over 14,000 titles. And I've watched every single one of them. That's a lie, but I've watched a lot of content. It's very good. Beat the Odds is part of Nebula First, which means each episode will be on Nebula a week before it's here on YouTube. So if you want to watch this guy in the next episode give me a really hard time and break the law in the process, you can watch that right now on Nebula. I also have Nebula Plus content on there, including a very dramatically lit interview that I did on card counting. But that's not all. Nebula have partnered with CuriosityStream, the leading streaming service for documentaries, with thousands of titles on their platform. If you like my kind of content, then there are 2 documentaries on CuriosityStream in particular that I'd like to recommend: Aces and Knaves and In the Mind of a Poker Player. Aces and Knaves showcases the huge cheating problem they have in the world of professional bridge, and in the Mind of a Poker Player, they hook up poker players to lie detector type devices so that they can monitor their physiological responses when they're playing a game, and the results are fascinating. Nebula and CuriosityStream have worked out an excellent deal where if you join CuriosityStream, you get Nebula for free. And it's the good kind of free, no asterisks here. As long as you're subscribed to CuriosityStream, you get Nebula subscription for free. As soon as you join CuriosityStream, you'll receive a welcome email from Nebula giving you access. Not only that, but if you use my link, you can get the CuriosityStream annual plan for 26% off. That's just $14.79 for the year. That's not per month, that's for the entire year, which is a very good deal. Please do consider checking out this deal, as not only does it directly support me, but it also supports a lot of other creators. One of the really cool things about Nebula is that it's creator owned. So out of really all of the sponsorships that you could support, this is probably one of the most beneficial to creators. Nebula only has creators on the platform that they really like, so really it's a very good library of content. Finally, please do follow me on these social media platforms as it helps boost my self-esteem.